Welcome to the 700 Club. Huge crowds out to vote today. My secretary went at 6 a.m. at her polling place here in Virginia. 100 people were already standing in line when the polls opened at 6 a.m. Unprecedented. And after all the campaigning and the millions upon millions of dollars spent in advertising, we finally got Election Day, and it's time for you to make your voice heard. And we've got a governor, by the way, of Oklahoma, has got a very insightful look, and Black Bishop to tell us what he's thinking about why maybe the black people are committing suicide, according to his book. So you'll find that interesting. We've got a lot of stuff for you. And then tonight, we'll do our incomparable CBN analysis of the polling results after most of the polls are closed, but I went over with our staff yesterday some of the results in some of the states and the electoral map. I think it's very, very interesting. And, well, Terry.
Nothing we've seen before, that's for sure.
Well, it's amazing, but it's breaking out pretty interestingly. And
it'll be a night of watching.
Well, Trump's coming out better than I think the polls would indicate. All right.
Well, polls do show that the race has gotten tighter in several of the key battleground states. Some of them could go right down to the wire and be decided by just a few votes. Charlene Aaron has the story.
Election Day voting officially kicked off at the stroke of midnight, as it always does, in the small community of Dixville Notch, New Hampshire. Clinton has a slight lead in the average of the most recent polls from the last few days. Still, the race has gotten tighter in key battleground states like Florida and Pennsylvania, among others. But many analysts still give Hillary Clinton the advantage in the Electoral College. Trump has focused on must-win swing states he needs to get the 270 electoral votes necessary to take the White House. Late last night, the two candidates made their final appeals to Americans to come out to vote.
So it's now officially Tuesday, November 8th.
I gotta tell you, this is sure worth staying up for.
Trump made closing arguments in Michigan, calling on supporters to beat the corrupt system.
Today is our Independence Day. We will make America safe again, and we will make America great again.
Just after midnight, Clinton held her final rally in North Carolina, urging voters to embrace a hopeful, inclusive, big-hearted America.
There is no reason, my friends, why America's best days are not ahead of us if we reach for them together.
And the nation will not only elect a new president, but potentially change the direction of the country by retaining or dismantling Republican control of the Senate. Contests in New Hampshire, Nevada, North Carolina, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania could well go down to the wire. All 5 of those races are within several percentage points and appear too close to call. Meanwhile, Trump and Clinton, after crisscrossing the country, are back in their home state of New York to cast their ballots, now leaving the final decision up to voters. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Well, I had a wonderful exercise with our news team yesterday over lunch. We went over the various states and there's certain key counties that seem to be predictive. There's one in Ohio, one in Indiana, that literally over years and years and years have predicted the national race. So we're going to be following them and others closely and seeing what's happened. But we were talking about Michigan, we were talking about North Carolina, we were talking about Florida, we were talking about Ohio, and these battleground states, and Iowa particularly, and then Nevada as well. I mean, I think that it's very interesting, the math on the Electoral College, but it's looking pretty good. Now, listen, I had the privilege and the pleasure yesterday of talking to the governor of Oklahoma. She was on the campaign trail here in Virginia for the Republican ticket. We talked about whether or not, as a woman, she would vote for that reason for Hillary Clinton. And we also discussed issues like energy independence and jobs. Plus, she shared her own amazing story of refusing to get an abortion during her first run for public office. Here she is. everybody's written Virginia as a loss for Trump, and I understand he's now within 1 point of winning the state. Is that right?
That's what I hear. But, you know, I don't think we can count anything for a loss, because with all things are possible, as you know. And so I'm here today and been here since yesterday campaigning for Mr. Trump. I just believe that he's the right man to turn our nation around and to lead us back to the principles and the integrity that we need in our nation to get us back on track. And there's a lot at stake in this political election. It's been a very rough season.
Oh, yeah.
Both the candidates have had some flaws and hiccups in their life, but you know, my main thing is I'm looking at the principles and the values that he stands for. He stands for right to life. I'm very pro-life, very proud of that.
Let me, I understand, when you first ran for office, you were pregnant, and they said, you've got to have an abortion. And what did you say?
Well, what happened was I was a working mother, and I was concerned about education, criminal justice issues, the business climate in our state. I was 35 years old. A seat came open in the legislature, and I just decided to run for office. I thought, well, I'm just going to go run for office. I had a 3-year-old child at the time. 2 months into my race, while I'm working full-time and just going out at nights and weekends campaigning, I kept getting sick. So I went to the doctor, and I said, I've got to get over this flu. He said, well, what's your symptoms? And I said, well, I'm tired and sore and feel a little nauseated in the mornings. He said, well, I think you'll be over it in about 7 months. And I said, well, I can't be. I got an election in 6 months. I got a primary, and then I have a general after that. He said, well, you're just going to have a baby. And I said, oh, no, I can't be having a baby. That's not in my plan. It's not that I didn't want him. I just wasn't expected at the time. So to make a long story short, I went ahead because in my heart, I felt like I was supposed to run for office. I stayed in the race. I had lots of people come up and say, you know what, you cannot win as a pregnant woman. And this is back in 1990. So women weren't that active in politics as much as they should be. So on election night, I was 8 months pregnant. 30 days after that, exactly, I had my son, who was almost 9 pounds, just shy of 9 pounds. And then I had a month and 1 week to campaign for my general. When I won, I had a month and a half old baby and a 3-year-old. And all those people told me that I would be, wouldn't be able to get anything done, wouldn't be successful. That was 26 years ago.
And this little baby's about 6'4".
He's 6'4", and he's gorgeous.
Is he a football player?
Well, he's actually out of college. He's a young entrepreneur, and he's working on his own, and very, very proud of him. And now my husband and I have 6 children between us.
Good for you. Donald Trump is thinking the EPA has been pretty much against natural resources. He certainly Obama has put the screws to the coal industry, something awful. The people in West Virginia and parts of Pennsylvania and Ohio are suffering because of that. How's that EPA affected you guys in Oklahoma?
Well, first of all, I think the EPA and a lot of the bureaucrats here in Washington, D.C. have overstepped and overreached. Sure. You know, I think there's a lot of great ideas that come from the states. We're the ones that are closest to the problems and the issues and the challenges that a state has, and governors and local regulatory bodies in our individual states do a good job. Yeah, sure. And so in the state of Virginia, I know that a lot of people have been worried about their jobs in the coal industry, but that's a blessing that God has given us is a coal, as it is with oil and natural gas, which we have in Oklahoma. And, you know, one of the things that really bothers me about the Obama administration's policies on these issues is I would much rather buy produced oil, gas, coal, whatever the energy source might be, from within the United States than to go to foreign countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Venezuela, other countries that produce energy and produce oil, and to buy it from them. I'd rather spend it in the United States, employ Americans, and be able to take care of ourselves.
You think Trump's policies will give us energy independence? Is that what you're hoping for?
Oh, yeah, I know it will.
You think so? Why?
He has worked very, very hard to talk to the experts in the energy sector. I know he believes in an all-the-above energy strategy for our nation. And once again, it goes back to the United States being self-sufficient, and for the most part, we can be because of technology and the production capacity. And frankly, that's one of the reasons why the price of oil has been down, is because we've gotten so good at producing it, that and natural gas. We have an abundance.
The oil, well, you know, it was $100 a barrel, then it went down to 30 or something, less than 30, and now it's coming back a little bit. Has that put some of the guys out of business in your state? Or?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you go from $107 a barrel of oil to 26 in a state like Oklahoma, that's blessed with resources, and there are many other states in the nation. it certainly does affect your economy. There has to be a right balance because you have to have a price point too to where the consumer can afford to be able to support their family and heat their homes and pay for gasoline versus having a market that creates the right market conditions for energy companies to be successful. So hopefully the price will come up a little bit and balance itself back out. But in the end, my goal is that we're able to provide jobs, revenue, opportunities for working families in American-made energy.
This election is very important for the future of America. What do you think of Hillary Clinton? She's a woman, you're a woman. Does that make a difference? Would you vote for her on account of her being a woman?
I never asked anyone to vote for me just because I was a woman. I was, as I mentioned, a young mother when I ran for office at 35 years old with real little children. I ran for Lieutenant Governor of Oklahoma. I was the first woman ever to be elected to that position. I ran for Congress, was elected, and was the second woman since 1922 to be elected to Congress. Then I ran for governor, was the first woman to be elected governor of Oklahoma. But people did not vote for me because I was a woman. People voted for me because hopefully they trust me. They thought I had integrity. They believed in the principles and the ideals that I talked about. I believe in a free market system. I believe that you let people keep more of their hard-earned money. I believe in protecting our constitutional rights, the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, freedom to own a gun if you choose to be able to protect your families. Believe in a strong national defense, keeping our taxes low on our citizens, not over-regulating people like we were talking about with the EPA. Those types of issues, and certainly taking care of the poor and the needy, as we're supposed to do as Christians. So people voted for me because of that. To me, I've told a lot of people the last couple of weeks, as a woman, I'm excited that a woman can break through glass ceilings, which I've seen many people do, but she's the wrong woman for the job. Because there's an old saying that one of my favorite ministers would say that your charisma can take you where your character can't keep you.
That's a great word.
She can say a lot of interesting things. She's, certainly remarkable for a woman to reach that capacity. It's a hard job because I've been there. I've had to go up through the ranks too, but your character has to keep you there. And when you have done some of the things that she's done to where people don't feel like they can trust her, then that tells me a lot. I'll tell you, one of the things I've said over the last couple of days is, as a governor of Oklahoma, I'm the commander-in-chief of our National Guard, and I take that very seriously. The men and women who are willing to fight for our freedoms and our liberty and to go to war if they need to protect our nation and what we stand for as a nation. But would you trust Hillary Clinton with your husband, your wife, if they were in the military, or your son or daughter, to be their commander-in-chief, knowing what happened in Benghazi, knowing what happened with her server, and putting out national security information on an unsecure server that we know people have looked at and seen? That's a matter of character and integrity that I don't think she has as a woman to be our commander-in-chief.
Well, you're terrific, and may God bless you. Did you get the chance to, in Virginia, you only had one term. Can you come back and run again for this office if you want to?
Well, actually, I'm term limited in Oklahoma, so I've got 2 more years left on my term. Okay. But we'll see what God has planned after that. Who knows?
Well, may the Lord bless you. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Doc.
Appreciate you being here. Well, how about that? I mean, interesting lady. She's
fascinating.
But the idea that here she's pregnant, and they said you've got to get an abortion. She said, no way. I'm pro-life. I'm not going to do it. 6 kids. Wonderful, amazing lady, and
she can obviously multitask well.
Oh man. But I mean, what she had to say about the National Guard is beautiful. And in any event, she was here, and just one more. It's interesting that we can show you these very fascinating people who have got significant roles in our government. Well, the federal government, speaking of the government, is working to make sure election process is free and fair. John Jessup has that story.
That is right, Pat. More than 500 Justice Department staffers will be monitoring the polls today while people vote. Those government workers have been dispatched to 67 jurisdictions and will be watching for civil rights violations, including racial discrimination. The announcement comes amid rising concerns about voter intimidation. The Justice Department is sending fewer monitors this year than in 2012, although they will be covering 5 more states. And a quick programming note, you can follow our election reporting online tonight on Twitter, Facebook, and the CBN News channel, where we'll have live updates and analysis starting at 8 Eastern. And we'll have a special election update edition of the 700 Club tonight at 11 Eastern on the ABC Freeform cable channel. You'll be able to see that online as well at cbnnews.com. Well, the only American who isn't on Earth at the moment has cast his vote from space. It's in keeping with NASA's motto, vote while you float. NASA says astronaut Shane Kimbrough has filed his ballot from the International Space Station, where he's been since mid-October. Before his 4-month mission, Kimbrough said it was going to be special to say, I voted from space. Astronauts are allowed to vote from space thanks to a Texas law passed in 1997 because astronauts live in Houston when they're not circling the Earth. And Pat, if he can make his vote from orbit, I guess no one else has an excuse to make.
My polling place is about 2 or 3 blocks from right where I'm sitting. So if I can go 3 blocks, that guy can go all the way up to 23,000 miles.
That's
yeah, it's remarkable
something to be able to say that.
Yeah.
Boy,
well, it's great.
You.
Well, anyhow, remember, folks, this is the day, and whatever you're doing, this is the most important election probably in your lifetime. So by all means, vote. Don't hesitate to vote. Get out and vote. And you say, well, I can't do it. If you can't ride, get somebody to drive you. I mean, there are plenty of people who will come and take you to the polling place, but do something